I think it's going to ask you all for permission. All right. So here we are. Good to see y'all. And we have fun updates to share. Thomas and I have had a bunch of check-ins since I made the switch up here, Bay Area. And since we received our funding from formerly Supervisor Marker Lee Thomas, now called Second District Supervisorial Arts and Cultural Grant. So the good news on that is, you remember the email that I sent y'all, is that that grant actually supports the general operations of the project. I was able to check in with Angie, the lead program officer over at LA County Department of Arts and Culture, and confirm with her that those funds could be directed to in any way that is needed or supportive of the project, even if the project's vision has changed since when we applied. And we applied for that a while ago, I think just as we were all coming together, maybe the beginning of 2022, I would say, is around when we applied. And when I say we, by we, I mean Artist Magnet, which is my company, which is the consulting business that I do, as fiscally received through Culver City Forward, which is Thomas's company, which is 501c3 nonprofit. So Thomas was enabled us to apply specifically for the project of developing the Culver City Creative Residency through my company, with me being essentially production manager is my title for the project. So that's the hat we were wearing. And so we received the grant. So the grant award is going to go to Culver City Forward as the fiscal receiver, and it will be administrated by my company, Artist Magnet. So that's the first update. Now, with regard to the decisions we made on how we're going to distribute the grant, that's kind of tied into the updates that we want to share with you. So first, I think we should go through the updates and let you know what has changed, where the status is, what Thomas and I are thinking, and then we'll let you know what our thinking was in terms of the distribution of the grant funds, which is 5,000 total, and our idea of compensating each of our Curator Circle members for the work that you all have already done up until this point, and then deciding how you all would like to proceed moving forward into 2022 with the project. So I guess I'll start, if that's any questions so far before I jump in. And then Thomas, I'll pass the baton to you.
So just to be clear, so this is like operational funds. What was the designation for the grant?
Oh, that's a good question. So originally, when we originally applied for the grant, what we applied for was to compensate me as production manager for my time overseeing the entire arc of the project, from the inception, since it was my concept, the inception, to recruiting all of you as the Curator Circle, to managing the meetings, through doing the submission to Amazon and Apple, and then through implementation of the first pilot residency. So that's what the grant was originally for, which is why we did it through my company, and which is why you all weren't a part of the narrative building of the grant, because the grant was for my role in the project. So so that was early 2022. Then by the time we got awarded the grant was when I was moving here to Oakland. So one of the changes is I've moved here to the Bay Area, and I'll update you all on how I want to be able to continue participating moving forward. And then another big change was that we never got to the place of asking for funding from the corporate sponsors. So whereas as it stands now, we have not submitted this proposal that you all have seen, right, that we put together on the Google Doc. We have not submitted that proposal yet to Apple or to Amazon or to any corporate sponsors for funding. So we didn't get to that. None of that phase of the project was completed. Obviously, as you all know, we haven't implemented any phase of the project. So we're still in the development phase. So as of where we are from where we were originally with the grant, that's what then prompted me I checked in with Thomas, and then I checked in with Angie on what our options were from the funder perspective, via what could we do with this grant. And so I explained to Angie the situation that I'm moving. I explained to Angie that we didn't submit the proposal to the corporate sponsors. And then Angie got back to me and said, well, this is a general operating grant, so it's fine. You can use it for wherever you are with the project now, even if things have changed from when you submitted, you can just use it as you all see fit, as long as it relates to the Culver City Creative Residency, as long as it relates to the original project in some way, and as long as it's still through Culver City Forward, which is based in the second district in terms of the administrator of it. And that's it. So there is, I think, a final report that we submit where they're going to ask some questions, and I'm part of we'll get to this in a second when we get to the disbursement and the breakdown, but part of what I'm going to take on as my responsibility is submitting that final report and updating the funder on where things are now, what have changed from when we submitted to now. And then there's a thank you letter that we have to submit to the supervisor. Now it's going to be Holly Mitchell, who's now the supervisor for the second district, thanking their office for giving us the grant, and I'm going to take care of that. And then there's a budget report where we're going to report out how we spent the funds, and I'm going to take on taking care of that and administering the funds to all of you who want to accept it. So that's the work that I'm going to do, and that's going to be like my job for the rest of this part of the project for that particular grant. Yeah, so that's what's going on with the grant trajectory, how it changed originally to now. Any other questions?
That was good, thank you. Question for you, would you guys think that it was rude if I started mixing some paint during our conversation?
I think that would add to the discussion, actually.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's okay. I'm just gonna move to the next room. I'm in my studio. I have a show opening in a few weeks, so keep talking, David. You have a beautiful voice.
Thank you, my man. And you can just put yourself on mute too if the paint's loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So now I think what will help create the context is letting you all know where things stand now and what our thinking is, which will tie into what I feel I can contribute to the rest of this part of the project. So as it stands now, as mentioned, we have not done any submission yet. So this is still in the proposal phase. What we've been doing this past year is having a series of meetings with many different partners. We met with 18th Street Arts Center. We had conversations with the Culver City Arts Foundation, Culver Arts. And we had conversations with many different Culver City leaders, workshopping and brainstorming the proposal. And every conversation, we had conversation with Janice Pober. And every conversation that we had, we did adjustments. We continue to do adjustments to the proposal budget, and to what actually the residency is going to be. And that's really the work that I was doing up until the point where we got the grant award and where I made this move. I switched my day job from Invertigo to Joe Good Performance Group. So now where it stands now, I am obviously very busy. We're all very busy with what's going on with COVID. And for me, running a theater and running a staff and a company in a new city in these times is definitely taking up my week. So what I have committed to doing is what I just described before. I've definitely committed to doing the final reporting, the budgeting, the acknowledgement, and the distribution of the funds for this particular grant award. And then what I would love to do is begin to have a conversation about passing the baton to the next phase of the project and having someone else lead as the production manager for the Curator Circle and for the project. And to that end, I'm going to be having a meeting with a gentleman by the name of Brandon Grimmett. And as I talk, I'll see if I can put a link in the chat. Do you all know Brandon Grimmett? He is the associate provost at Loyola Marymount University. He's also a board member of Invertigo Dance Theater, so I became colleagues with him. He's, I think, now vice chair of Invertigo Dance Theater, but he is a really great resource. He got his PhD in education and equity leadership of companies and corporations, and he had strong ties to what he is for the provost of career advancement at LMU. So he has a lot of connections to local corporations and to LMU faculty who are connected to local corporations. And Thomas, I forgot the name, forgive me, remind me of the name of the gentleman that's associated with LMU who also is potentially associated with Culver City Council.
Well, that's Freddie Pusa, who I think will be running for city council and who is the community outreach director at LMU. Right, I'm pretty sure they know each other. We haven't really had that conversation yet, but they're close colleagues there, I think.
And he's a really great, capable administrator as well. And I've shared with him the project. I'm actually going to have a meeting with him this afternoon at 2 to update him on where things are and see if he would be interested in meeting with you all and learning more and getting more involved. So that's also one contribution that I want to commit to, seeing if I can connect you all to Brandon, seeing if there's opportunities there for him to support the project. And then basically began to pass that baton and rotate on to the next phase of the project, which we'll talk about in a second. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
David, I should just say I had one meeting with the Invertigo Dance Theater board that Brandon took was very engaged in, and he seems like a terrific guy. So and very capable. You know, would be a wonderful person to work with if that turned out well.
Absolutely. So then in terms of the project and what we're thinking about and this is where I'm going to pass the baton to you, Thomas. There are, as you all know, a lot of Culver City partners that we're connected to. And as we've been sharing with them with the project, they're all really very excited about the concept. So we want to be able to continue to pursue submitting this proposal and the concept if we can. And one of the opportunities and potential ways we can go with it that Thomas and I were brainstorming is either integrating or connecting in some way this project to the work that the Vindi Museum is doing, because they are developing a residency at their space in Culver City. And also the leadership, Justin, of the Vindi Museum is also connected with Culver City 4, I believe is on the board, right, Thomas?
Yeah,
Culver City
yeah.
4.
What is the Vindi Museum? What is that?
The Vindi Museum is our fabulous, relatively new museum based here in Culver City, and it's become a major cultural institution in Culver City. But it's a museum of the Cold War, which is kind of interesting because it's a collection that had been collected and curated by this very dynamic guy, Justin Jampol, who's the founder of the museum. And it found a home. It's a collection that's been exhibited all over the world in various shows and things, different parts of it. But it was a number of years ago that we were able to make a deal with the city to use the former armory of Culver City, and they developed that into the museum, which has been hugely popular. And then they also have just gotten the entitlement to the property next door, where they're going to be creating the Venda Creative Community Center. And then there's another parcel right next door to that, where there's going to be an affordable housing for refugee artists.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Project that's relatively new,
That's
but
awesome.
that just got approved. So it's a wonderful way for Culver City to be expanding its affordable housing in this particular area, because it's kind of like got everybody behind it. So as part of those projects, they are going to be started. I mean, that's going to be a kind of artist residency in that new building. I think they have 6 units. I'm not quite sure, to be able to house 6 artists who will be refugee artists from around the world. So anyway, that answers who the Vindi
That's
Museum.
cool.
I can come back and
Yeah,
talk about that
really exciting to hear about that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Justin is aware of the project. That's our project as well.
Yeah.
I know I checked in with him about that before I left town, and there's just a lot of excitement with what we're doing. So that's a cool potential connection there. Of course, we also have the Culver City Arts Foundation, Culver Arts. And I remember, Thomas, last time we left over, they were interested in us potentially going to a board meeting. I know that that ended up not happening, but do you think that they're still interested in potentially being collaborators on this?
Oh, I think they'd be eager to hear from us. And you know, and really the major breakthrough collaboration is really with the school district and with the education foundation, who are, because I mean that is a large set of institutions there, you know, that of course is you know, very challenged right now. But to have that group, the schools interested in collaborating on this is a major accomplishment.
Got it. So yeah, so definitely still a lot of potential partners. We still have the proposal, still opportunity to bring someone on board to support as production manager, or someone here, if someone in the Curator Circle would be interested in taking that on, definitely want to provide space and opportunity for that as well. And then so for my part, a way I'd love to still stay involved, because I'm still definitely interested in supporting Culver City arts and want to stay involved. And I shared with Thomas that really for a long time, my specific interest has been supporting capacity building for the Olympics coming to LA in 2028. And that's more like a long-term objective, but that's something that I feel like can still support remotely. That's actually something that with my current day job, Joe Good, the founder and artistic director of this company, is also interested in supporting. He was actually part of the original, he was one of the performers in the original, or I guess in the last Olympics in '84 that came to LA. And so he's interested in coming back and being a part of it. And so we, as you all might remember, we were periodically having conversations with the Olympics Arts Committee. Like every year, essentially, we've been checking in with the Olympics Arts Committee, LA 28, and updating them on kind of what's going on in the art scene in Culver City, what our aspirations are about this festival. And they've continued to say that they're excited and supportive and want us to keep them posted. So we're planning on scheduling another update with them later this year, a virtual meeting. And so I'm definitely interested in being a part of that. But yeah, that's kind of what my long-term contribution will continue to be. And then as after we pass this baton, you know, I will hopefully can be a resource for you if there are any questions, anything you need me for, but want to be able to just be supportive of you all, ideally making the residency happen in 2022. So that is what's going on for the future of this from my perspective. And yeah, Thomas, anything you are going to add from your end?
David, I think why don't you go into the, just to complete the update, why don't you go into the details about what our discussions have been about the proceeds from the grant money?
Absolutely. So how we tie this in now to where you are as the Curator Circle, Thomas and I basically, when we spoke, we definitely agreed that we would love to continue. If you all are interested in continuing in this project, we would love to have you continue as the Curator Circle, to continue to meet and continue to ideate around the proposal and ultimately take it across the finish line and submit the proposal to Amazon and Apple. But if you've decided that you're good, you know, as we know, with everything going on, it would be completely understandable if you're at a different place in your life, your career right now, want to pursue a different avenue. That's totally fine too. Either way, we want to compensate you for the time that you've put in up to this point in the Curator Circle. And so the way that we can do that with this grant is offer each of you a stipend. In terms of the amount of the stipend we're offering, one of the things we want to do is we'll offer the same stipend to each Curator Circle member. And the other thing we want to do is we want to offer it with minimal as possible administrative time and effort on our end and tax liability on your end. And so the way to do that is to set it at the maximum limit that we can give you all as independent contractors without you having to submit a 1090, without having to ask for a W-9, and you all have to ask for a 1099. And that amount, as many of you know, is $599. So anything under $600 is something where we would not have to do the 1099 forms for you. So that's where we set that amount at $599 per Curators Circle member. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward you all the W-9 forms so that we can get your information, so that and by we I mean Artist Magnet, the company that's administering this to each of you, can know where to mail it. So all we need is a W-9 form and invoice from each of you, and then we'll be able to process and mail you that stipend for your time. And so I'll email that to you. And if any of you have questions about the logistics of how that's going to work, just hit me up on my Joe Good, david@joegood.org email. We'll take care of that for you. Okay, so that's in terms of the stipends. And then in terms of then moving forward, you might be asking, okay, what's happening in terms of the future for this project? This grant is done. This grant period is up until now. So any work that you'd be doing moving forward for the creative residency, that would then be administered under Culver City Forward, Thomas's company, right? Not my company, Artist Magnet. We're going to be out of administrating this project after we wrap up this grant reporting and wrap up your stipends. So any additional compensation or anything additional that's budgeted, that would be coming, the funding of that would need to be proposed and funded from somewhere, whether it's from Culver Arts or from Amazon or Apple or whoever you all would propose to support the project moving forward. That would need to be the funding streams for the time for the Curator Circle moving beyond this point. All right, so any questions about that?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that's what's going on in terms of the grant, in terms of distribution, in terms of budget. Anything else then, Thomas?
Well, in terms of the future prospects for this, I think that you know, the aim of an Olympic Arts Festival as something that you know, that we're preparing for here in Culver City, and that we want to participate in and spearhead. You know, that's kind of the underlying motivation behind this, of that David and I really started talking about this and doing these various programs for the residencies itself. I think, you know, it's going to be hard to move this forward without David as the leader, because he was sort of there at the inception of it. But I think that that from every standpoint, from a practical standpoint and from a creative standpoint, that a partnership with the Vindi Museum would definitely be in order. And David and I both talked about this briefly with Justin, the founder, and I've talked about it briefly also with Use, who's the chief curator at the Venda. So they are, you know, they are developing now, and they have. It's interesting. They've done a lot of research about artist residencies, and have met with a number of the different artist residencies, some of whom we talked to as part of this, and have been going through this process for a year now, I think. So there's a lot of discussion to be had with Use, who I think is running this. And if the way I would see it being possible would be as kind of an adjunct to their artist residency program, because they're going to be having artists from all over the world who are refugees that will be resident at their facility. So if we can do something parallel to that, to bring local artists in sort of partnership with those artists there, you know, with that program, and be feeding into the schools, I think this could be a very viable program. But it's going to really depend on the Venda. And it's, as we all know, it's just really hard to talk about anything right now. You know, in regard to Apple and Amazon, you know, I expected to be back in conversations with them as of the beginning of the year, and they still have not come back. They're still not in their offices, and they're not telling when they're going to be in their offices, even, and you know, and it's clear that part of that return is going to be changed, because a lot of those folks are still going to be working remotely. So that's we're just going to have to take a wait and see for that. It's changing on a moment to moment basis. I just heard in the last half an hour, I just heard that they canceled school for the whole Culver City School District for all of next week, that they're not even doing anything remote. And it's just canceled altogether for next week, which is going to be.
Oh, they're not even doing remote learning. They're just.
They're not even. Yeah, they're just canceling the whole week next week. You know, it's already partly a holiday, but it's certainly a major, you know, wrench in the works for all the families. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about it. But you know, I think that you know, I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. You know, I think I'm eager to connect back with David after he talks to Brandon, to see if, you know, because certainly Invertigo was involved in this from the beginning, and we have a great relationship with Invertigo, and to see if you know, what they're interested in doing. And I'm eager to hear from you guys how we can, you know, how we might be able to take advantage of the relationships and equity that we have here, you know, going forward.
Yep, and I just to piggyback off that, I put a link here in the chat with the latest version of the proposal to refresh your all's memory, in case you want to see that, go through that for context. And so that has all the updates based on our conversations with our partners as well. All right.
So
those conversations
oh, sorry, Patrick, go ahead, and then Ed.
Yeah, did those conversations include the Villa Aurora?
No, that's interesting.
They've been doing residencies forever.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's multidisciplinary, and you know, they have a strong connection to the music community. So you know, I think there should be some engagement there.
I'm sure the Venda has been talking to Villa Aurora about that, but we didn't get that far.
Yeah, they should.
And I'm on the board of the Thomas Mann House, which is the same umbrella organization with based in Germany, that with Villa Aurora.
Right, and they do writers residencies, right, or are planning to?
Yes, yes.
I mean, the scope of the project is still the same. We're still trying to create funded residencies for the development of work, or is that has that part changed? That part is still the same.
Yeah, I don't think that has changed. David, you're muted, I think.
There we go. The core concept, is the same, but we want to open it up to you all in terms of the idea of the type of residency is up for grabs, because remember the original concept, the idea was of a purely digital residency, which would be hosted on a virtual platform, which ideally we were thinking would be on like Culver City Forward site, in which artists would have the opportunity to create content remotely, and create digital content, and learn how to market digital content, produce digital content, maybe even make like a BTS how-to or behind the scenes of how they're developing this content. And then maybe ultimately there'd be like a screening of that content, maybe somewhere like at the Kirk Douglas Theater. So that was what we were talking about back in 2020, like 2021. A lot obviously has changed since then. And even though we're still in a COVID world, you know, is there interest in a more like a hybrid type of residency, or like a physical residency at a space like the Vindi Museum, or site-specific residency?
And
Yeah.
I mean, these discussions are really interesting, but from a and valuable, but from a practical standpoint, I think that we kind of need to get with the Venda and have them as creative partners, in terms of how this could practically work. But I think that we in a sense can have a lot to add to their program, and that their program is focused on the refugee artists, and you know, and that's going to be building over the next, you know, because the building still has to be built and so on. But you know, to have a local component, I think could be something that will be very interesting to them, and you know, that we could add, but we need to have that discussion.
So you see them as an actual physical site that the residency could happen at potentially?
I mean, there would certainly be the opportunity for that. I don't think well, there would be the opportunity for the use of facilities. I think that in terms of artists actually living there, I think those spaces are will be spoken for by the refugee artists.
So we're still thinking about local talent then we're thinking about local artists that we would be trying to get support for, because they would already need to have housing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Local, regional. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Also, the
Sounds good to
Vindi
me.
has started a music series several years ago in 2018, and they tried to start it up last week and had to put it on hold. But they've had dealings with musicians and composers, and so that's a plus from my perspective.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm still down.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm still
Edgar.
down to be involved as long as we're supporting artists and we can help to support if it's music or performance or whatever. I'm still down.
Fantastic.
Help me in.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's still, at least in the proposal, that intention is still there of multidisciplinary, being
Well,
open to, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think for our next steps, it's like we're in this bizarre, twilight limbo right now in regard to pretty much everything on the horizon. So, David, I think that you should have a conversation. You'll be talking with Brandon and in Vertigo. Then I think you and I should talk again after that, and maybe maybe Brandon could join. And that we should have another meeting in a similar to continue this one in a month or so, which, David, I think you should still be involved in at that point, just to see where the most, where this can head, and at that time or even before then, we may be able to get to have more discussions with the Venda. So that we can have, some some concrete things to be talking about, which we're sort of not ready to do today. That's what kind of makes sense to me.
That sounds great to me. And then, yeah, Joseph and Patrick would love to hear where you all are at in your lives right now and what you're thinking about being involved in the future.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep on with the project. I don't think I've done $599 worth of work on it, so I don't plan to submit an invoice or fill out the paperwork in order to stake claim on that. So if the next phase of the project results in a more actually putting pen to paper and really starting to sort of pitch this and endorse this and support this in a more meaningful way, or more time intensive way, I should say, then we can talk about that.
That is very generous of you,
Very
Joseph. I think someone will probably take your stipend off your hands. Just kidding. Yeah, and we'll talk about, Thomas, we should talk about that as well too, because there may be an opportunity if Culver City Ford is interested to have an amount that is like considered seed funding or whatever to support the continuation of the project, so we can work that out.
If that funding is like use or lose, like it can't carry over to the next phase of the project, then I'll take it. But I'm imagining it, that $599 should go to an artist before it goes to me.
I hear you saying, yeah, I don't think it's use or lose. We can decide. I believe Culver City Forward can decide how much it wants to take. But I think when Thomas and I were talking, since it is general operation and Angie said that it's fine, I think we were thinking we might as well just take it and then decide, the team can decide how we want to prioritize. I've given the amount to Thomas that I need for my time and for Artist Magnet to administer. And then we can decide, for the rest of it, how you all want to prioritize.
And I just think it's great. I mean, you guys have, you have taken meetings with us and put effort into this. I'm really great that can be remunerated or recognized in a small way. So I'm happy that David really found a way to do this.
I still haven't gotten paid by California Arts Council for the grant. Analyze that on
neither
9 months ago.
And they're about to do another
hot mess.
Yeah. There another application is due. coming up, right? And so now I'm going to apply, and I'm going to have to tell them I actually didn't do anything this past year because I haven't gotten the grant from the last application. I mean, you're right. It is a mess over there. Poor California Arts Council. But anyway,
David, one more thing I want to mention is just that I ran into Yuval Sharon the other night and got to have a wonderful conversation with him where we weren't in a big hurry, and he was delighted to hear that you're with Joe Good. I don't know if you even know that he's a huge admirer of Joe Good's. So
I didn't. So okay, I'll hit him up. I'll reach out to him. That's
cool. It was happy news all around. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And he's bought his house here in LA, so he is rooted here in LA. It's a great thing.
He finally got it done. I'm so great. Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, just to think 10 years ago, he was just starting everything, and to see where it's gone in 10 years, it just shows you. Yeah, so that's awesome. All right.
Where do you get the house? Do you know?
I want to say he's not too far from you. I think he's in Silver Lake somewhere.
That sounds about right. He always loved Silver Lake.
Yeah.
He loves that area. Okay, cool. And Patrick, are you still on the team, or what do you think?
For sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'll check in with John. I think also wanted to stay involved, and Elizabeth is going to listen to our recording and get back to us, but was also really excited. She said she really wanted to be here, but just had to run into an industry production meeting that she couldn't get out of today. So that's really great to hear. Yeah, so I want to say again, piggybacking off of Thomas's sentiments, thank you so much, for still wanting to be involved, and thank you so much for being involved. It's been just really great to have this, thought partnership with y'all.
Likewise.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we'll be back in touch.
All right, y'all. Yeah.
Thanks,
we'll recap this in an email, and we'll schedule up another meeting when we got next steps. All right.
Happy
Have a
New
good
Year.
weekend, everybody.
Happy
Happy New Year.
weekend.
Bye.
Okay,
Okay, bye.